Alright guys, I'm back, and if nothing else, we're learning from our mistakes making this video. Okay guys, here's the poop. I basically had to take everything apart because I made a boo-boo, and I'll explain to you the boo-boo as I go along here. I'm not sure how I'm going to end up editing this video, so if there's a few parts where I'm talking about boo-boos and it seems like things potentially don't make as much sense as maybe they should, it's because I started out, had this almost all put together, realized I made a boo-boo, had to take it back in steps, and now I'm basically back at the starting point, and I'm gonna take another crack at this and see if I can be even more articulate and informative. Don't count on it. Alright, so you guys aren't going to have the problem that I had, in that you're going to have the proper mount holes on this axle. I had to drill this one because this is my prototype. I had to drill this one, and I initially had it mounted with the third link, the upper suspension link, on the left side. I need it on the right side in order to run the axial SCX10 center skid plate and transmission. And the reason for that is that in the axial setup, the motor sits really low, and it actually touches the screw that mounts that third link, guys, that upper link. So if you put that upper link on the wrong side, it interferes with the motor. So you have to have it on the right side, guys, not the left side. So check that out, guys. If you put your transmission together, you can sit it on the skid plate and double check that the motor is not going to touch that suspension link screw. And just so you know, guys, you actually do have to have the motor facing forward, because if it faces backwards, it is going to touch one of the rear upper link mount screws, because in the back there's two of them. Okay, so remember that, guys. That's important. That's a lesson we learned. If you're doing the design that I did with the 12428 parts and the plastic skid plate, guys, much more forgiving. It does not interfere in that setup, so keep that in mind. And clearly that means that the SCX10 setup is optimized to get that motor as low as possible, guys. And you're paying the price in that there's one less thing that you can get away with in terms of fit. No big deal, guys. Probably a good idea. It gets, it's an optimal design, whatever. But bit of a pain in the butt if you make a mistake. Alright, so on we go. We're gonna put this back together, guys. So I left it semi-assembled, guys, because I've been, doing way too much work here. And as you can see, we got the front bumper mount, the servo, the cross brace. Try to show you here. I'm holding on to way too many parts here, guys. Cross brace, battery box, panhard bar mount, shock mounts installed. This is all pretty straightforward stuff, guys. The shock mounts just screw into that cross brace, and that anchors the whole thing together. The servo mount is just screwed into the chassis. Really easy. Servo gets screwed into the servo mount. Bumper mount gets screwed in. All this holds the chassis together. You don't have to have this whole front part loose to get everything else farther back together, so I'm not going to. And now I'm going to show you how this all goes back together, and I'll try and do it as articulately as possible. Alright, so step one, gotta put the axle back together, because we took her all apart, guys. Now, we're going to, I have the links and the shocks already installed on the link mounts. Guys, remember, you got to install the shocks before you put on the caster blocks, because the panhard bar mount link blocks this screw. You cannot put these on after. That's a whoopsie on my part. Well, whoopsie, whatever. It is what it is. That's how it goes together, guys. So remember that. That's a boo-boo you can make if you're trying to get fancy. Alright, so these just slide on like so. There you go. Easy peasy. Then you gotta get your handy dandy. Actually, you know what, guys? I'm going to put this link on first. And okay, so the suspension link, the cause of all my troubles, gets installed like so. What you got to check, guys, is that your bendy ends actually give you some the advantage that they're supposed to. So what they do is they adjust the positioning of the link so that it's optimal, and they do. Oh yes, I remember this now. I gotta do one more modification, guys. So, oh man, it's never ending, isn't it? Alright. Holy friggin' moly. One mistake after another. One oversight after another. This is an oversight, guys, not a mistake. So what we gotta do, this hole actually has to be up a little higher for that link to mount and pivot, because there's not as much room in this prototype axle as there is in the final version. So what I gotta do is I think it's going to work now. What a newsome, guys. What a newsome. Alright, cross your fingers. Maybe this is the 15th time it's the charm. I'm going to have to double check this, guys, to make sure that I'm not sticking you with a huge pain in the ass. I'm almost positive that I went back and redesigned this, and I'm just still using the old crappy one. It was clearly not designed right. Wow, did I ever botch this, guys? Haha, alright, we got it. How well it's going to move, that's a whole nother question. Yeah, alright. Oh, is that ever tight? Hopefully it wiggles loose with a little bit of use. Alright guys, a smart man would fix that a little bit more, but this smart guy's had enough. No mas, no mas! Alright, let's get back to putting this together. So now, guys, we have got to install Alright, so you get your drive shaft into the end. Then you slide on caster block like so. Everything comes together nicely. Yay! You go to the other side, do the same thing, drop your axle in, and you just turn it around until it sits into the drive cup. Yay! And you take yonder caster block, make sure the axle goes into the bearings, slide it on, and you win. Woo! So there's our steering all installed, there's our steering link, drag link, life is good. Alrighty. We are good to go. Alright guys, here we go. We got the front axle put together. We got all the linkages going, everything's nice and smooth. Shocks on. 3 links plus pan bar is going to mount to the outside there. Alright. So I'm just going to lie the axle in here, guys. Then I'm going to install the skid plate. I'm going to double check. The whole problem I had was this link went to the wrong spot, so now it goes to the opposite side as the motor, which is where it needs to be, so that's going to be good. So we'll slip this in between the chassis rails and then give them a little squeeze. Alright guys, so we got back bumper mount way back there. We got the roll cage brace, skid plate, cross brace for the suspension mount, or the shock mounts, and the suspension in general. We got the servo mount, we got the front bumper mount. That's everything, guys. Next, we gotta get the floorboards in position. So we're gonna put them on. And I'm going to use the front mounting screw to just kind of hold it in place. Oops, that didn't screw it on very well. Alright, so that's in position. Now, I'm going to thread in where is it? Where is it? Where's the hole? Oh, I think I found, nope, that ain't it. There we go, guys. So we use one hole to loosely mount the floorboard. I'm going to quickly do the same on the other side. The reason these are going on so easy, guys, is because I've already put this together a couple of times. Alright. Alright, floorboards are in place. Now we can mount the suspension links. We're going to start with the bottom ones. We need 2 short screws. Oops, that was a mistake, guys. These are a little snug against the chassis rails, guys. There we go. While we're doing this, let's do the back ones. Where did those screws go? Alright, things are held in place now, guys. We can continue merrily on about our business. Alright. I'm going to leave the back loose for now, guys. I think I'm going to attach the shock, because that'll make things a little more solid. These shocks are a little stiff, guys, so I'm using the farthest back shock mount holes. You're probably going to have to adjust the suspension, guys, depending on what kind of shocks you're using. If they're stiff, you're going to want to use the holes that are farther back. If they're a little less firm, you can use the holes that are, oh, I already had those attached, perfect. Less work in the back. Alright. If they're a little softer, you can use the vertical holes, the holes that set up the shocks as vertical as possible. Alright, that takes care of that. While I'm over here, guys, I'm going to install the panhard bar. Alright. We got a little wobbly because we don't have all the links installed yet. Okay, next. How does this go again? Oh yeah, it uses that hole right there. Alright, guys. This is the last attachment up front, guys. Yay, we're winning. I have to flip this over to be able to get that screw on. You need to be able to hold the screw while you're threading, or hold the nut while you're threading the screw in. Just like that. And then you use your little your wheel wrench to hold it, and you crank that screw in there, guys. All right. Looks pretty good. Looks pretty symmetrical to the eyeball. Guys, what I'm looking at is the positioning of the axle side to side. You want it to be pretty much dead center. You do get some bump steer when the suspension compresses with this setup, guys, but not a huge big deal. And if you have the axle centered, life is good. Alright. So what we're going to do now is we're going to install the motor into the transmission, and then the transmission into the car. Oops, as I drop things willy-nilly. One of the things I've discovered in the RC hobby, guys, is that motor mount screws are gold. They are they're the one thing, like you'll strip them, you'll lose them, you know, it's an adventure, guys. Especially with the cheap Chinese cars, a lot of times the motor mount screws are hard to get out for some reason. At least that's been my experience. And Yeah, so these ones are actually just some washer, some captive washer. Oops, trying to find it here. Some captive washer screws that I bought a set of for really cheap. Got them for like $6 or $7. Great big box, like I don't know, a couple hundred of them. And unfortunately, they're not as useful as I thought they would be. But these ones actually fit perfect as motor mount screws. So I'm going to use them on this bad boy. And if I can find the hole. Let me get the screwdriver on it. These are nice because I got a lock washer right on there, so it should be pretty solid once I get it affixed. Remember, guys, you got to put the motor in before you put the pinion on the motor. Or things will fail to chooch. Alright, there we go. She's snug, but not super tight. And we'll get this this pinion that came with this setup. And we'll get her installed on there. Huh. Alright guys, so you just want to line up your pinion so that it overlaps that spur gear properly, and get that set screw nice and tight. You can Loctite that if you want, guys. I generally don't. I like to have those set screws relatively easy to get off, and Loctite tends to make it a little bit difficult. Now guys, I usually just eyeball the mesh. I've had good success with that. If you're concerned, you can run a piece of paper in there, and you just want the paper to be able to go through there. That's a hair on the loose side. Just a hair. You just want a little bit of play there, guys. You line up one tooth pointing straight at the center of the other gear. So you see that tooth there is pointing right towards the center. Alright, that's where it's going to be the tightest, and you want just a little bit of play there, guys. Just a wee tiny bit of play. Just the tiniest bit. That's pretty good. I'm going to tighten this up. And then what you want to do is you want to turn that spur gear all the way around, make sure there's no tight spots, because everything isn't always perfectly symmetrical. And this doesn't seem to be perfectly symmetrical. Well, that grease on there is not really helping. Or I tightened it up slightly, one of the two. When you tighten these screws, guys, it's really easy to accidentally get things a little bit tighter than you had it initially, especially with these adjustable mounts. Wow, there's quite a bit of difference there, guys. Look at that. If we go back here, a lot tighter. So that's not ideal, but it should be okay. We'll keep an eye on that. Yeah. So that's why we check, guys. Gotta make sure I'm okay with that, so I'm gonna make sure I got these nice and tight. Yeah, we're good. Now, there were no instructions with this, guys, on how tight to make the slipper. So I like it fairly tight, so I'm just gonna crank this baby on, back it off a little bit, about a full turn. We'll see how that works, guys. Worst case scenario, you got your slipper locked up, which not the end of the world for the most part. Depends how hard you're driving. If you drive your truck fairly hard, guys, you might want to loosen that up a little bit more. You know, lots of bouncing, lots of torque on that gearbox. A little bit looser will absorb some shock, keep you from wrecking stuff. If you're real mellow on your stuff, guys, not the biggest deal. Alright. Got our gearbox put together. Wipe her down. Keep things from getting too dirty. Grease attracts dirt, obviously. So let's put the gearbox in next, guys. So you'll notice we have the motor opposite this suspension link here. That was the whole point of all that work, guys. All we gotta do is flip this over and get the installation screws going. This one's the easiest. A little bit hard to see, guys. I can't really show you any better than this. One. So there's 4 screws that mount the suspension to the skid plate. One of the things you want to do, guys, is make sure you get that transmission sitting. Sorry, mounted. Did I say suspension to the skid plate? 4 screws that mount the transmission to the skid plate. You want to get that transmission sitting nice and flat, guys. When I test fitted it, I noticed that I had it sitting a little bit crooked at one point there. I had to tweak it a little bit. So we'll try and eyeball it once I get this together. See how we do. Oopsie, dropped the screw. Where'd it go? Of course, it's stuck to the motor. The tweezers come in handy, guys. Good grief. I can't get it. I can't get it. Ah. There we go. Got it. All right. Slowly but surely, guys. Not much to see. I'm just eyeballing down the center there, guys. Let's see if we can see. Yeah, not very well. Anyways, trust me, guys, if you look down there, you can see if you got your transmission sitting flat or not. A little bit off isn't going to make a huge difference, guys, but you might as well try and get it right. Alright, so next, because we're going to use... Oh, you know what? I'm going to just tighten these up, guys. Position this back bumper mount and anchor all this stuff together a little bit. Oops. We're just getting the screws into this bad boy. We might have to loosen it up a bit to get that that brace that holds that supports the cage just perfect, but not a huge big deal. We're just gonna snug these up for now. Alrighty. Then position the cage. Flip this over. Oopsie. Try not to wreck anything as we go through the motions here. I'll use that brace to support this. Hopefully. There we go. Okay, so it's sitting in the brace. And what we got to do, guys, is position these links. I'm just tightening them, guys. I think they've gotten turned a couple of times while I had this all apart, flopping around and stuff. So what we're going to do is we are going to run. Oh yes, I used these. Okay, we don't need these screws, guys, because these are ones that I used with the old setup. We need screws and lock nuts. Came with the skid plate. And we're going to start by threading these screws through the roll cage mount, and then those will go right into the holes for the suspension mounts. Then get the link in position. Oh wow, guys, with these nuts this is going to be a pain in the butt. With the setup that I made with the plastic skid plate, guys, you just thread these right into the skid plate. There's no nut to hold. With this nut to hold, it's going to kind of suck a little bit, guys, because I can't get at it from the top. I did not see that coming. So how are we going to do this? It'll be a bit of an adventure. I think maybe we'll try the tweezers. Tweezers or needle nose pliers is probably going to be the way to go, guys. I'd say this is a bit of a miscalculation. So for this setup, guys, I can kind of see why you would want to use the roll cage mounted to the body, because it is hard to get this nut on there, guys. It's real hard to get in there. Oh, I think I got it. Oh, it's a little crooked, but at least it's in position. It's a little bit cross-threaded there, guys, so I'm trying to get it just right. Ah, there we go. Now we got it. Alright, we got it, guys. Yeah, it's hard to get in there, especially with big fingers. Where'd my little... there's my little wheel wrench. So now we gotta try and get the little wheel wrench in there. I don't think it's gonna work, so I'm gonna use pliers, guys. Use handy dandy needle nose pliers to hold that nut. Yeah, there we go, not too bad. I'll flip her around. Do the other side. Wash, rinse, repeat, right guys? Lather, rinse, repeat. Wash, rinse, repeat. Alrighty. Alright, in she goes. There it is, poking out. Try and get this nut in there. That seemed to work pretty well with the tweezers last time, instead of my big fat fingers. Yeah, no problem, guys. Piece of cake. See, once you get it in there, you back it out a little bit so that you got your nut in the right spot. We grab onto it with the pliers, tighten everything up. because that hole in the skid plate is threaded, guys. So you gotta get your nut just right. You don't want it insanely tight. There we go. All right, we're good. Oh, there's a screw in there. I'm gonna pull that out. Not sure what that's from. Oh, got in there. Must have dropped it. All righty. Go. Oh, it came out of the back here, guys. That's what it came out of. So then, last but not least, use the, can we see that? No, we can't see that very well. So, in there, guys, right there, you thread these two screws, one on each side, into the bumper mount. Guys, it's really helpful to test fit your parts before you do the final assembly, because if you don't, the screws are going to be way harder to get in there because there's no thread holes, or there's no threads cut. If you do a test fit before you put all the final pieces together, everything goes nice, just like this is going right now. Alright, so easy peasy. So the cage is installed, suspension's all installed, transmission's in there. Electronics are in there. Alright guys, we're real close, we're real close. So close I can taste it. Get some pieces away. Alright, we'll come back for final assembly.